those of you here in London and to those of you joining us from around the world. Welcome to the third in our series of Google Plus versus debates. I'm Jemima Khan from Intelligence Squared, who've organised tonight's debate. I will be fielding questions from the web, and now over to our chair for the evening, Emily Maitlis.
Jemima, thank you very much indeed. Good evening. Tonight we're putting hip-hop on trial, and the motion we're debating is the following. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades it. That's the motion that we're putting on the table tonight. When you hear hip-hop, do you feel inspired or demeaned? Is it art or is it just noise? Does it empower those who embrace it or does it stereotype and hold them back? We've assembled, as you can see, a truly stellar cast here who'll be sharing their passions and concerns about hip-hop. We have the rappers, KRS-One, uestlove, Q-Tip, Deeb, Estelle. We have hip-hop intellectuals. We have experts from the worlds of literature and sport. We have veteran civil rights activist Jesse Jackson. We have joining us also from New Hampshire, we have the satirist PG O'Rourke. We have the musician, we have the computer science visionary Jaron Lanier, and we have the poet Benjamin Zephaniah. Many of our speakers are here with us at the Barbican Centre in London. Others are going to be joining us via the Google Plus Hangout technology. And wherever you are, be it in London or online, you'll get the chance to put your questions to the speakers. Jemima, who you just heard from, is our audience rep. She'll be sifting through the messages in real time on the Hangout. If you have a specific question that you'd ask a member of the panel, we can get that to you. Just make sure you put their name at the top. Your vote is crucial. As with all Intelligence Squared debates, we've already asked you to vote either here in the hall or online. And in a short while, we'll be announcing the result of that pre-vote, i.e. where you think you stand before you've heard the arguments from our speakers tonight. We'll be bringing you that a little way into the evening. At the end of the debate, once you've had a chance to listen to both sides of the argument, we'll be asking you to vote again. Now, for those of you here in London, there'll be a ballot box coming round. Just make sure you don't miss it. We don't want anyone disenfranchised at the end. It'll be coming round about 10 minutes before the end of the debate, and you just put in the rest of your ticket there. So let's get into the meat of the subject now. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades it. The debate's going to be broken down into two acts. The first is on the politics of hip-hop, what it does, and the second on the aesthetics, how it sounds. We've got two distinguished advocates who are going to be building a case for either against the motion by questioning our eminent witnesses, for or against. Now, those on my right have been, let's say, more critical than those on my left of what hip-hop is today. There are many shades in this argument, as you will appreciate. We're going to leave it to the advocates to use the witnesses as they see fit. We make no apology for the language that people choose to use tonight, either here, on stage, on the Hangout, or through the lyrics that they quote. It's part of the very essence of the debate, and we know that if you're easily shocked, you probably wouldn't be here or be listening. So now, please welcome our advocate for the motion, Eamon Courtenay. He'll make the case against hip-hop. Eamon, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Emily, and good evening to one and all, here, there, and everywhere. It's going to be a wonderful evening. And let me start by disappointing you. I am not an expert on hip-hop. He is. Professor Rose is. We have artists here who know more about this than I do. But I am here as a father who was taken to a ludicrous, or was it ludicrous, concert by my 16-year-old daughter. And when she came out and told me, "Daddy, Daddy," he sang a song to me, and I said, "Which song?" She started telling me the words, and then she stopped and couldn't finish. Hip-hop does not enhance society, it degrades it. I am not going to debate the history of hip-hop. I am not going to say that it did not have a great and glorious past and a beginning. Of course, rapper's delight. Of course, public enemies. Fight the power. Listen to this poetry. As a rhythm designed to bounce, what counts is that the rhyme's designed to fill your mind. Now that you have realized the pride's arrived, we got to pump the stuff to make us tough. Beautiful, but it is no more. My friends, I have 4 minutes, but I want to invite you to join me very quickly in a place called Hip Hoposphere. A place called Hip Hoposphere, a parallel universe, where bad is good, where wrong is right, where crude is cool, where asses are more valuable than brains, a place where the thugs are the kings, and a place where bitches and hoes take pride of place. Something is wrong with Hip Hoposphere, and there are people here who love that place. I don't. And I'm inviting you to reject it and to vote against it tonight. There is this idea of swagger. I'm sure that the professor is going to tell you about it. What is it? Swagger. It's obscene. It is about the idea that money is the main thing. Let me tell you what 50 Cent said. Get rich or die trying. That's what he said. Let me tell you what else he said. Death gotta be easy, because life is hard. In Hip Hoposphere, the idea that you go to prison is glorified. 50 Cent, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, each and every single one of them is a convicted criminal. We need to reject that idea and reject it firmly. But my friends, the reason we're here is this. The power of hip-hop. It's attractive, it's seductive, it's addictive, but it's toxic. And it's that toxicity that's killing us, that is killing our young people, that is killing the older people. And when I say killing, I mean K-I-L-L, shooting. And listen to the words of the hip-hop people. Listen to what they say to you. I got a itchy trigger finger, nigga, it's a killer. In me not to spray that shit. I got enough ammo shots to blow I up a hole in every motherfucker out this bitch. I be a gangster and nigga till I die for sure, whether I am poor or filthy rich.
10 seconds.
Isn't that gutter? Isn't that obscene? Isn't that a sick culture? I say to you, reject it. I say that is degrading the society in which we live. I say it is bad for you, it is bad for me, and it is bad for all of us. I have 5 final points to leave with you very quickly. This whole idea, it first of all promotes thuggery and criminality. It fosters misplaced values. It is designed to appeal to the base in our society. And I say to you, if hip-hop does not reform and reject this, its future has passed. I thank you for your time and attention.
Eamon, thank you very much. Thanks for kicking us off so forcefully. Please now welcome the advocate against the motion, Michael Eric Dyson. He'll be making the case in favour of hip-hop. Michael, you have 4 minutes for your opening address.
I want to thank my distinguished colleague, Brother Eamon. I rarely share the stage with a real lawyer, a real barrister. In my neighborhood, barrister is how you said bastard with a lisp. So good to see him here today. Does hip-hop degrade society? People say that because, as my colleague said, it leads to crime. Do you know crime has declined dramatically in the last 20 years? Murders are down, assaults are down, robberies are down, rapes are down. There is no one-to-one correlation between a hip-hop lyric and a subsequent material condition that leads to criminality. That's a mythology. Now, what the criminologists tell us, there is a reason there's a perceptual gap between what we think and what is the case. That's because of crime shows. It's not TI, it's CSI. Get it right. Then we talk about education. Education is in shambles, but not because of hip hop. Hip hop teaches a respect for rhetorical genius, for oratorical wizardry, for the invention of words. But material conditions lead us to budget shortfalls, which keep instruments out of schools. If we want young people to play instruments like Questlove, if we want young people to be able to engage in the most sophisticated classical extension of traditions that have been nurtured both within the heart of Africa and in the heart of Europe, then give them access to the money. Stop the budget shortfalls and give our children access. Also, of course, they talk about incarceration. Most young Black and Latino men in America, and unfortunately even in Europe, especially in the UK, are there for nonviolent drug offenses. It was not hip-hop that led them there. Before hip-hop was even invented, there was an over-incarceration of African-American and Latino men. It has only been exacerbated by repressive white supremacist practices of both Europe and America. Has hip-hop grown out of degradation? Of course it has. In the late 70s and in the early 80s, with the rise of Reaganomics, Reaganeering, Reaganopia, as Charles Adams would say, there's been a destructive political concentration upon demonizing young Black men and increasingly women. Those are state policies and public policies designed to corral young Black people. Has hip-hop sometimes glamorized and glorified that? Of course it has. But it is a complex culture, which shows the ludicrous character of trying to assault an entire culture that produces both Jay-Z and Nas and Lauryn Hill and Questlove and Eminem. How can you assault a culture that is already critical about itself? How can you be against something that's against itself? It already encourages self-reflection. Unlike my colleague who had nothing but self-righteous condescension pointing the finger at the other side, hip-hop says, as Lauryn Hill said, even after all my logic and my theory, I had a motherfucker, so you ignorant niggas hear me. Jay-Z said all my teachers couldn't reach me and my mama couldn't beat me hard enough to match the pain of my pop not seeing me. So with that disdain in my membrane, got on my pimp game, fuck the world, my defense came. Self-criticism, looking at their own culture. Biggie said back in the days our parents used to take care of us. Look at them now, they're even fucking scared of us. So there is self-criticism. And as I end, will you destroy an entire culture because of some problematic pathological expressions that are undeniably wrong? Misogyny, sexism, homophobia, they're all in the church. Are you going to stop the church? Are you going to get rid of the church? You're not going to get out of the church, right? Finally, let me say this. My colleague says it appeals to the bass element. It does. Bass, how low can you go? Bass, how low can you go? Bass, how low can you go?
Thank you, Michael. You've heard the opening addresses then from both our advocates. I'm going to bring you the result of the pre-vote, as I suggested. This is what people thought they believed as they came into the room or as they logged on. So online, if you're watching online, and don't forget, this is the motion. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades it. 30% agree with that. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society. 56% disagree with that motion. 14% are undecided or don't know. That was online. What about in the room here in London in the Barbican? In the room, 11% agree with the motion that hip-hop doesn't enhance society. 67% of those of you sitting here disagree with that. 22% of you don't know or undecided. Don't forget, what we're looking for at the end is to see how that has swung, if it swung at all. We're not looking to change minds, but we're looking to open minds and get you to think a bit about what you've heard here tonight. So you may just see a change in that percentage, even if one side still carries a majority. That's all for us to find out a little bit later. Now, we're going to begin Act 1, Hip Hop Empowers and Liberates. Now, at this point, I'm going to ask Michael to start the questioning, and you can talk to whichever witnesses you like to build your case.
All right. Thank you very kindly. Reverend Jesse Jackson, let me start with you. You are one of the first great rap artists in the sense of your tremendous poetry emanating from the street. You're a great civil rights leader, the first LL Cool J, Cool Jesse Jackson. You have an understanding of an entire breadth of a culture, not just one lyric or song, but the entire culture. As a minister, tell us the difference between perhaps obscenity and profanity.
That might be the basic. Hip-hop is a culture of rebellion, born in pain and on street corners, garages, and sometimes in jails. Hip-hop exposes contradictions. For example, the war in Iraq was obscene. People were killed, money was wasted, lives destroyed, honor was lost. Now, those who engaged in the war now know it was the wrong target, all the people killed, and they'll even apologize for it. So if a hip-hop artist in language that is profane rebels against it, he is blamed as being the bad guy. The bad guy sent people to get killed for no good reason.
All right.
Make
one more point, let me turn off.
It's also the hip artists and all that they expose the language, but they flip the language. Poor people lie, rich folks prevaricate. Poor people steal, rich folks embezzle.
All right.
So the twisting of language has a way of throwing light on people. So I think hip-hop at one level exposes light in dark places.
All right, Reverend Jesse Jackson. KRS-One, one of the most legendary hip-hop artists of all time. Much love. You're a person who's spoken both to police brutality, you've talked about social destruction, you've led a movement against violence. You've seen both sides of the movement, and yet you are hip-hop. You don't think hip-hop degrades, but that hip-hop has the potential to liberate and empower. Tell us about that.
Well, you just answered it. Hip-hop does have the ability, in fact, I would even say this, if we have the power to degrade an entire society, then we also have the power to uplift it. You can't give us powers that we don't yet have, then take them away when, that contradiction. So I would say, yes, of course. I don't even know how to answer such an obvious question. Of course hip-hop enhances society. Now, the idea of that it degrades society, I would say is an arrogant question, because if the society that we're talking about is like a society that starts wars all over the world, degrades indigenous cultures, is misogynistic in itself.
Right.
If that's the society we're talking about, then it's not a bad thing if hip-hop did degrade that society.
All right. No doubt. Dream Hampton, obviously as one of the great hip-hop journalists, you co-authored Jay-Z's very powerful book. Tell us, as a female, as a woman, as an intellectual, understanding misogyny, sexism, homophobia, and patriarchy, but also understanding the rich resources that hip-hop presents to both empower, uplift, and enlighten people. Tell us about your take on the entire process.
Well, on the entire I agree with Reverend Jackson that this is a resistance culture. So even as we're faced with misogyny, we create spaces, the women in hip-hop have created spaces to be confrontational about that sexism and misogyny. As a community organizer, I've been able to use hip-hop to, again, organize around police brutality, around political prisoners in the United States, to have cultural exchanges in Cuba and Venezuela and South Africa. So it's been an incredible place where cultural exchange has happened. Right. And in your opening remarks, this notion that self-criticism is built in to hip-hop is more true than anywhere in the Black community. I certainly can't go to my pastor and check him about all of the bitches and hoes in the Bible in the way that I can go to Too Short or Dr. Dre, as I have throughout my career.
All right, that's beautifully put. Touré, is Touré here? Is Touré there? My man Touré, how you doing there? All right, so, Touré, you are a prominent journalist. You've written about hip-hop. You're writing Nas's autobiography with him, his memoir right now. Tell us, as an intellectual who's also a parent, how it is that you are able to reconcile the negative complications of a culture with its more positive expression, and why you are an advocate for that hip-hop culture.
I mean, I've loved hip-hop since the first time I heard Rapper's Delight on the radio, driving in my mother's car. And one thing I note in this discussion, we keep talking about hip hop as if it is one thing. And of course, those of us on this side of the aisle know that it is many things, that it is the Ghetto Boys and Lauryn Hill, Nas, Jay, Public Enemy, Outkast, Kanye, KRS, De La Soul. Certainly no one would say that the Roots, especially the last album that they made, is degrading society. I mean, to go back to what Dream said, it is a resistance culture that in many ways is responding to the war on drugs, right? It is not a result of the war on drugs. It is the result of the war on drugs. And crack is the result of the war on drugs. The crack epidemic follows the beginning of the war on drugs, not the other way around. And what hip hop has done is respond to the way the war on drugs has criminalized Black men, put us in prisons. And hip hop is merely speaking about the situations that we have been dealing with these last 20, 30 some years, that the war on drugs has been dominating our community. But let's just even deal with the economic issue that hip hop itself has created thousands of jobs, has funneled millions of dollars into Black hands and into some white hands. It has brought people together in a sort of multiracial way, rainbow coalition, Reverend Jackson sort of way, Black and white, Latino and Asian partying together from the 70s era of hip hop through the Wu-Tang Public Enemy era. And
all right, my friend. All right, that's brilliant stuff. That's brilliant stuff. That's why Touré is doing what he does. James Peterson, in response to what Touré and others have indicated, Dream Hampton, KRS-One and Reverend Jesse Jackson, this culture is too complicated. You spend your life as a prominent professor writing about hip-hop culture, talking about its length, its breadth, its depth, its complications, its complexities, its beauties, its horrors. Tell us why this is a narrow lens on a much broader culture that needs to be expanded.
Well, first, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this yet, but the culture actually consists of multiple elements. We've been talking about rap music, but it also consists of graffiti and visual arts. It also consists of dancing and different kinesthetic movements. It also consists of DJing and being musicologically inclined. So it has multiple elements that we're not even talking here. The fifth element of the culture of hip hop is knowledge. So that the constituents of hip hop are directly concerned with the formulation and creation of knowledge, not just through rap music, but through all these other elements that we're thinking about here. So there's a much more extensive way of approaching this question. Now, in terms of empowerment, all you have to do is look at what hip hop culture does in education systems, because essentially what we do is we empower young people to control and use language to their benefit. So it's both empowering and liberating through the linguistic piece. All these other elements are also a big part of this conversation that we probably won't have time to get into, but people need to understand that we're talking about a very, very full, robust culture here that has empowered young people and liberated young people, liberated their minds for almost 4 decades now.
Right. When we talk about, amen, amen. Is Q-Tip there?
Yes, brother.
Is Q-Tip there?
What's up, what's
My
up,
man
what's
Tip.
up? How you?
Q-Tip.
All right.
Now, my opponent will later on raise the issue of nigger. Not nigger, a white supremacist epithet hurled with lethal intensity toward vulnerable Black people with the intent to hurt, but nigger, which is an attempt to rescue that word and deal with it. Recently, you've dealt with the complications of that term. Tell us why an enlightened, engaged, legendary rapper like you also understands the use of that term as one not only of endearment, but of some sort of solidarity that needs to have inside-outside borders. Can you help us with that?
Well, I mean, one thing that everybody before me eloquently stated was, you know, our ability to kind of have self-examination. And with the song that I wrote with the Tribe Called Quest, Suck a Nigga, it was that. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't a justification or giving myself a license to use the word. It was just actually admitting, you know, the struggles with it. You know, the obvious history of the word, it comes from a very nasty, evil place. And sometimes when we're left in our quarters, you know, when we're in our ghettos or when we're in our neighborhoods, you know, when we're still trying to find our identity as men from being like, you know, emasculated, as we're trying to find our manhood, as we're trying to find our swagger, if you would, we sometimes take the things that are left, we take the scraps and we make with it, you know, we endow it with what we wanted to. Like, so having that word nigga, that was just such like a derogatory term. you know, in our neighborhoods, we would take it and amongst each other, we would, you know, put love with it. You know, sometimes there could be a gnarly situation where it wouldn't be said with love, but it's a very complicated word. And I think as we, you know, move into these days that we're in, you know, and we hear that word a lot, and you know, obviously our audience is not just black; it's white, it's multicultural, and you have white people sometimes who say the word, and it's a very, very tricky thing. It's not. I would think that we probably would need a different, a separate intelligence to talk about this.
Right. Okay. All right. That's Q-Tip.
Yeah.
But you possess a luminous intelligence, and we appreciate that. Let's turn to Deeb, an Egyptian rapper. Of course, given your perspective as one, especially with the Arab Spring, where you were able to see hip hop used in such a powerful and constructive fashion, do you think that the argument about hip hop's destructiveness and degradation even begins to speak to the enormous power that this art form brings?
I mean, the argument that hip hop doesn't empower people is void in my region, especially the Middle East. If you look at all the countries that had a revolution, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, even recently, Sudan had its revolution, guys. Watch out for Sudan. And I mean, hip hop was there. Hip hop was expressing the youth's concerns. Unfortunately, in the Middle East, the past 50 years, we were invaded by pop music, very shallow music on the radio that didn't have any connection with reality. And hip hop provided that platform or alternative to people who wanted messages, people who wanted to listen to a song with a meaning, who wanted to find out about his identity, closely to what Q-Tip was talking about, you know, his movement with the native tongues, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers. They were showing that they can, you know, have fun, spit really hot 16s, you know, at the same time, you know, entertain the people and give them knowledge. So I'm seeing a lot of connection with how hip hop is flourishing in the Middle East, very similar to the 90s movement. It's very similar to, you know, KRS-One starting in the 80s with Master Ace, Edo G. It's happening in my region, so I don't buy into the argument.
Yes. We're going to get to the rest of our panel members. We know that Touré has to leave. Is he still there? Touré?
He left already.
He left already, my man. All right. Well, Questlove. Questlove is there. Let's holler at Questlove. All right.
How you doing?
Quest, you have been celebrated for having political consciousness. Your group has really pioneered the ability of a musically rich group to be able to appeal to traditional forms of music, but at the same time use them in the expression of hip-hop culture. How do you sit there with all of the worlds that you've created and look at the narrow way in which we frame this question? What's your response to hip-hop's power to elevate, to liberate, and to change?
I'll try to keep it as short as possible because I'm known for being long and loquacious with my words, but I think literally hip-hop has saved my life. I grew up in a household. Fortunately, I had a father that loved music. And, you know, growing up, seeing his 3,000 to 5,000 record collection, some of the stuff made sense to me, i.e. the easy stuff to digest like Stevie Wonder or Earth, Wind and Fire. But, you know, then I would look at his you know, Art Tatum records or his Larry Young records or even his like John Coltrane records as punishment. Like, what 7-year-old wants to listen to Alabama or My Favorite Things? And it really wasn't until, you know, I became of age and then started listening to groups like De La Soul and Gang Starr and A Tribe Called Quest. And suddenly my father's record collection was contextualized in a way where I now saw the art of it. And then I became obsessed with his record collection. And eventually, you know, I don't know, I think in some small way, I'm the positive result of how hip hop can affect you. It made me more politically aware. Dream Hampton is one of my, on your panel, she's one of my idols in the world of writing. Like a lot of her record reviews that she's done in The Village Voice and all these political commentary stuff that she's done. I mean, she's the reason I have a book deal. Q-Tip, the same way. Like he's a hero of mine. I see the beauty of it. I took it as a musical art form, and somehow I've made a business out of it, and I'm all the better for it.
All right then. This ends our presentation for the moment. We'll turn. Thank you very much. All right. All right.
Eamon, the stage is yours, the hangout's yours. You have 15 minutes.
Thanks again, Emily. Professor Michael Eric Dyson. Wow. I thought I was debating preacher, but you're a politician and a lawyer. Brilliant. But I think it's time for us to search for the truth. Some people are still in hip-hoposphere. Let's hear the truth. Mr. Whitlock, you said hip-hop is dead. Is it?
Yeah, I believe it.
Sorry, is it?
Yes.
Hip-hop is dead.
Yes, it's been replaced by prison culture.
Say it again?
It's been replaced by prison culture. Okay, I want to respond to Mr. Dyson pointed out that crime is down, and that's a fact. Incarceration is up. Prison building is up. Hip-hop is the marketing arm of America's war on drugs. Hip-hop is the tool that has been used to define African-American men as worthy of criminalization for nonviolent drug offenses. Hip-hop is the lobby of the prison industrial complex. It's the reason why. Why is that? Why is prison building up, incarceration up, and there is indifference to it globally? No one cares about the African-American man in the United States of America. Why is that? Our image has been destroyed by hip-hop at home and globally. We have been defined as criminal and unworthy of respect, and hip-hop has been the major marketing arm of that.
Slaughterhouse, are you here? I guess they also left like Touré?
No, we're here.
Great.
We're very much here.
That's wonderful. So tell me, gentlemen, who gave you the right to call our women bitches?
Who's he talking to?
Are you referring to us?
Yeah, he's talking to Slaughterhouse. Who gave you the right?
I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
Can you hear us?
Who gave you the right to call our women bitches?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, take that.
Have you ever called a woman a bitch before?
It's your turn to answer, my friend.
That's hilarious.
Well, let me put it to you like this, and I'm gonna try to word this. I'm gonna try to talk as slowly as I possibly can, because it's clear that you're already. Are you gonna let me talk, or are you gonna talk? You can't take in information and talk at the same time. Check this out. You're arguing something, and it's clear you don't have all the information, and you're a little naive. Me personally, when we speak about we as in rappers, when we speak about bitches, it's a direct language speaking to people who understand exactly what we are saying. Hip hop is it's a global global form of communication now. So women and bitches are not the same thing. When we talk about bitches, I'm talking about bitches. I'm not speaking about women. I'm not speaking about my mother. I'm not speaking about the daughters. I'm not speaking about all the beautiful women. I have nothing but respect, and I speak for all of us. We have nothing but respect for women. When we talk about bitches, we talk about bitches. There's bitches in this universe. If you didn't know, I know a couple of them. I can direct them your way.
It sounds to me like you're struggling to give a credible answer. But let me.
How about when your daughter comes up to you and asks you questions, how about you just be a father?
All right.
And teach your daughter correct from incorrect, no?
Professor Rose. You listen to him struggle.
But you do the research.
You listen to him struggle. Are you comfortable with women being called hoes and bitches by the hip hop artists?
Well, actually, I'm going to answer a slightly different question because I don't think the women on this panel should be relegated only to women's issues, and it would be the second gender-based question. I'd love to hear all the men on that, but let me first say there's no question that commercial, mainstream American hip-hop not only responds to a legacy of violence against black people, but it also exacerbates and glorifies it. Commercial, mainstream American hip-hop. This conversation has acted as if hip-hop is one thing or another, an entire monolith. And by ignoring the extraordinary commercial penetration of hip-hop, and I use that word advisedly, what we've allowed to happen is to render meaningful criticism of the commercial takeover of a black cultural form designed not only to liberate, but to create critical consciousness, and turned it into the cultural arm of predatory capitalism in the last 30 years.
Right.
I'm gonna answer it. And so I love hip-hop so much, I must speak the truth about the demise of the spirit of hip-hop insofar as it has been taken over by these ideas, so much so that this young gentleman here thinks that this is funny, right? That calling black women bitches is funny. And we egged him on with your laughter. So I'd like you all to ask yourselves why you thought that was so funny.
Exactly. No, thank you. Tell me, Shaun, what is it like in England?
American hip hop has led us. Do you know, I've got to say something to girls. I will take on the girl issue, right? Bitches ain't nothing but tricks and hoes. Lick these nuts and suck this. Do you understand? Hip hop ain't got nothing good to say to you. There can't be a woman in the room who's defending that. There can't be. There can't be. There can't be. If you notice, it's the boys who are booing because they need you to believe that. And another thing as well. Another thing as well, yeah, if you talk about black people on both sides of the Atlantic, we feel like we've been disrespected community, but hip-hop constantly talks about killing other black men. We had 27 black boys killed in London in 2009, all killed by other black boys. Hip-hop sings about that all the time, talks about peeling back wigs, filling people with bullets. That's what hip-hop is doing to us. There is no set of people in the history, of people who's spoken about its own children in the way that hip-hop does. And that needs to be looked at. It isn't about getting rid of hip-hop. I think most people up there are hip-hop fans. I'm a big hip-hop fan. But the thing is, it's about changing what it says about us. In it, black men are only portrayed as sexy and dangerous. That's why they like to put us in jail. If you don't know anything about black people and only see this commercial stuff, that's what happens to us. And if you're sat in a crowd and you come to defend hip-hop, which part of it are you defending? Because a lot of people have been telling me about conscious hip-hop, conscious rappers. They're in the minority. What people buy is the selling of the killing of young black men. That's what people are buying. They're not buying the conscious stuff that is protest music. Many forms of black music have managed protests without talking about killing niggers. If black people talk about killing black people, why would anybody else not do it?
Thank you, Shaun. Reverend Jackson, in 2009, I want to give you a direct quote. You said, "Some rappers are exploiting the culture when they could be transforming the culture. The result is that so many of the artists who project the violence end up getting killed, like Tupac and Biggie. They end up going to jail, and with the level of talent that they have, they must lift the language, their vision to a higher level." Your words. Have the hip-hop leaders lifted the language, lifted their vision? I suggest you they have not.
Some hip-hoppers criticize other hip-hoppers. It's just that broad. When one hip-hop out of the housing project in Brooklyn owns an NBA team called Jay-Z, that's lifting up the culture. When a hip-hopper out of New York called LL Cool J becomes the master of ceremonies for the Grammys, that's lifting up the culture. When a guy like Russell Simmons turns hip-hop into an industry and changes laws in New York on just the locks up black people. That's changing the culture. And so I see hip-hop as broader than just a song or just a
So
lyric.
you're telling me, Reverend Jackson, a leader of the American civil rights movement who fought against the term Negro, who fought against the prejudice and bigotry in your country, you are telling me that today you embrace the use of the word niggers by the hip-hop artists? I'm confused. Isn't that what you fought against?
Well, I get because you're confused. That's not,
well, I need you to help me, Reverend. I'm come to church. Help me.
Well,
help me. Help me.
When I think about the language, on the one hand, there's not a black gun shop owner in America, another black gun manufacturer in the world, and 7,000 blacks a year are killed.
I'm asking you about
350,000 killed since 1976. And so treating us that way is worse than the language itself. And so the language, I may not embrace misogyny or the use of that word. That does not condemn the culture of hip-hop because it's much bigger than...
I'm asking you specifically to condemn the use of word niggers. Will you or won't you?
I'm not going to do that.
All right. You see, Tony, you see where the Reverend is. He is in hip-hoposphere. Enlighten us.
Yeah, well, what it is, you see, over on that side, you've got a vested interest, because what happened with hip-hop was that when it came from its Jamaican roots and came up to New York, it had a lot going for it. And I think that what really happened was, I got a figure here that 15,000 black men died between the 70s and up to around the late 90s in black-on-black violence in America. Rap music said nothing about that. It said nothing about that. It was the theme tune for much of that. And what you've got over here are what I call hip-hop intellectuals. People here now, that this is going through Google, they're talking to their constituencies. And their constituencies have vested interest in hip-hop. And what we've got to understand here is that this is a pact. The rapper, the corporate sector, everybody got together and everybody said, we all want to get paid. Yeah? We all want to get paid.
It's about the money.
And that was what was happening here. We've lost the roots, really, of, and I say we, I'm talking about particularly here, I'm talking about black music. Black music never really was ever about just reflecting reality. It was always about a vision. It was always about resilience. It was always about how we could get further. This music is just simply indulgent around two things, well, more than two things. Misogyny, it's the return of the minstrel, it's thuggish, it's crass materialism, it's going nowhere.
Thank you. What about, is the great Estelle in Hangout? Estelle, are you there?
I'm here, hi.
We open and she's been trying to talk for about 20 minutes now.
Yeah, I've been trying to say stuff for like 20 minutes.
Sorry?
I've been trying to respond to some of the statements for like 15 minutes now, but I'm here, hi.
Great to see you.
Hi.
Are you comfortable with bitches and hoes?
I'm comfortable with people raising their own children.
Yeah.
Word. You know what I'm saying? And not blaming hip hop for, you know, use of a certain type of language. I'm comfortable with that. My question to you, though, at the same time is, did you not do the research on Ludacris before you sent your 16-year-old daughter to her concert? Because I know my mom wouldn't have ever in life sent me to anyone's concert that she didn't approve of their language, or she didn't, you know, she didn't feel like I was mature enough to deal with. Clearly, you didn't think your daughter was mature enough to deal with that.
Clearly, he doesn't know anything about his daughter.
You know, you had a moment about it. Personally, I think hip hop is a vehicle, is music, is a way to get free. Is freedom of speech. You know, I'm not saying that not every single woman is a bitch, or not every single woman is a hoe.
Wait, bitch is not gender specific.
Like, it's not gender specific as well. It's not gender specific either. You know, I'm not. You know, I feel like language is what it is. You know, you take it for what it means. I'm not here for that.
Are you prepared to do the right thing and to condemn those who characterize your sisters and my sisters and my daughter as a bitch and a whore?
I am prepared to say this, okay?
Yes.
I'm prepared to say, I'm not a bitch, I am not a hoe, I do not carry myself as someone that's taught me a different way. Up to those people out and your kids, that same instance, that same kids, the exact same perspective on life, that you are not this is not who you are. You don't have to take this on as being who you are. There are definitely women and definitely men who exemplify that, but you don't have to deal with that. You don't have to accept that as who you are. This isn't a black thing either.
Let's
rip
up the
black thing
Constitution while we're at it.
You know, stop. It's too easy to say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're now going to enter a slightly more freewheeling point in the debate where voices from the panel and the audience can join in. Just to say that we've got some roving mics here. If you want to raise your hand, we've got about 4, so I'll get some microphones. Just put your hand up if there's a question. We'll get some to you. There's, yeah, one lady on the front row, or is it a man? She's putting up his hand. I'm not sure what that means. Just here in the blue. And a guy at the back there. Yeah, lovely. 1, 2. You've got one there, have you? 3. And you, sir, behind. If you've got the mic, I guess you have the voice. So ushers in the stalls are making their way towards you. We've also got Jemima, who's reading out some of the questions that have been coming into us online. Let's take whoever's got the first mic. You, sir.
Thank you. My name is Rob Barfat. I'm a hip-hop journalist. I have a question for Mr. Courtenay. Very briefly, a bit of background. I'm South African, and in the region in which I studied university, the Eastern Cape, there's a town called Grahamstown. And Grahamstown is unique in that it's in the two sides. There's the university on one side, very rich, very privileged. On the other side, there is a township, complete opposite. I do not claim to speak for the people in that township, but I did have a few friends there, and the one thing that I was repeatedly told was how important hip-hop was to the people in that township, how much energy it gave them. And this picks up on what KRS said earlier.
Can, with questions rather than statements,
sure.
If you can, sir.
Picks up on what KRS said earlier. When you say that hip-hop degrades society, which society are you referring to? Do you mean Western society?
You're breaking the format.
Wait a sec, 1 second. I'm going to bring in just before, I'm going to take a few questions because there's a lot of voices that want to come in. Hold your thought there, Eamon. Which society does it degrade is the one we're starting with. You say you had a mic there as well. Yeah.
One thing that we've been mentioning was hip-hop and what actually influences us, but we actually failed to look at it. From my perspective, I've never heard the word nigger, never heard the word hoe being used at me, whereas you can hear it from the stateside. So is it actually a hip-hop problem, or is it actually a cultural problem? Because over in the European side, we never hear that.
Okay, great. You're up, Geek. Yeah.
So you talked about the words and the lyrics being used, but what I want to ask is, isn't it our duty to deal with the reasons people or young people are identifying with these niggers and these hoes and these bitches rather than take it out on the whole hip-hop culture itself? So, yeah.
Okay, so we've got 3 questions then. I'll let you answer the first one and we'll take the other ones on. Which society does it degrade? That was the question you were being asked, reference the South African journalist.
I think the South African context, I've only visited it once, so I can't speak to it, obviously. But I have to say, the society that I'm talking about is a society that is in this room. The society that was clapping thunderously when my brother was speaking. The society that accepts that a bitch and a hoe is a proper name to call a woman or to refer to a woman, and I do not care who she is. You shouldn't do it. The society that I'm talking about is a society that does not have a problem with saying, I'm going to kill you, and glorifies that, and sings songs over and have on the video screen images of killing, of murder. Listen to me. The point is very simple. Music is powerful. Hip-hop is powerful. And I believe, with respect, we are losing a segment of our society that is not strong enough to overcome it. Look at the way people dress. Look at the way people talk. Look at the way people think. We have got to give them a better alternative. That's my view. Thank you.
Thanks, Eamon. I'm going to bring in PJ O'Rourke, who's joining us from New Hampshire. PJ, if you can hear me, good evening.
Yes, I can hear you, and I'd like to ask a question. What the fuck am I doing on this panel?
It's a good time to ask. It's a good time to ask. You heard a couple of questions there. One, I'm going to throw them to you as the expert. One, are we wrong to associate words like bitch and whore with rap culture, with hip-hop culture? There was a lady here saying it's not in her culture. She's never heard that music.
No, that is to say, yes, we are wrong to associate it with hip-hop culture. Look, the language of poetry is ugly. I mean, poetry is not greeting card shit, you know. Poetry gets at the deepest and the darkest parts of our body, and I don't mean that in a color sense, you know. It's just, and poets are all sorts of stuff is liable to pop out of their mouth. And no, I don't think that it. What are we going to do? Like say, no, you can only rap about puppies. You know, you can't tell us how you feel.
Right.
I'm going to bring in now. Thanks, PJ. I wonder if we can cross to Isiah Thomas in New York, who's a top-tier sportsman. And Isiah, if you can hear me, we had a question from the audience here that the reasons that people turn to hip-hop is to look for their identity because of the situation, the poverty that they are in. Is that justifiable in your view?
Well, that's you know, to answer that question, I'd have to give you a whole answer, and the whole answer is this. You know, there's two parts of hip hop that we're talking about. There's the commercialization of hip hop. There's the co-opted part and the commodification of hip hop that is pumped into the mainstream to perpetuate the stereotypes of African-American men and women. So we need to look at the hegemonic forces and the structural forces that kind of pushes that agenda. From an oppressed standpoint, you know, hip hop definitely speaks for and speaks to the oppressed. It gives us voice, you know, in America. When I was, you know, in the 80s, when hip hop was coming on the scene, and the black men were being arrested at an alarming rate and still are being arrested at a very alarming rate today. Hip hop was that voice that spoke to that. There was a gap found in the structure, and hip hop found the gap and gave voice. Those structures now have more or less closed those gaps down, and the co-opting and the commodification of a certain small slither of hip hop is what we're really talking about. We're not talking about the whole art form. You know, Toni Morrison said that.
Isiah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks for your points, Isiah. That's great. I'm going to take us on to. I'm just hearing that we've got Slaughterhouse back. If we can bring in Joel. Shaun Bailey, who's been... I think he lost a couple of members along the way, but Shaun Bailey here was saying that black men in rap portray themselves as sexy and dangerous. That's all. Is that the look, the image that you're going for?
We all like to do that.
Well,
thank you, PJ.
You know,
all right, y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Listen, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you people. I'm a realist. It's clear to me that everything is not for everybody. And the people on this panel, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of opinions just being spewed back and forth. It's clear to me that these people are not seeking information and they're arguing against something that they have actually absolutely no knowledge of whatsoever. So, I'm sorry. So nothing I say is going to sway these people. They're obviously closed-minded. They're obviously not looking for that information. And quite frankly, hip hop is not speaking to them. Hence my last response where I was talking about bitches, and the young lady immediately responded with black women. First of all, bitch is not gender specific, number one. I never said anything about race. You brought that into this. So clearly people are hearing what they want to hear and taking away the information that they want to get from it. I'm not really beat for all of that. Y'all are not my motherfucking demographic, to be honest with you. And the way that y'all talk, I don't get. The way I talk, you don't get. I don't give two fucks about it. Everything ain't for everybody. So I'm going to go head on now because the people that are not present in London can't really voice our views. We're getting cut the fuck off. And before I get annoyed by it, I'm going to leave. Thank you for everyone for having us. Zeke, holla at you. Go Knicks. We out.
KRS-One, when you hear Slaughterhouse speak, do you feel, do you get where they're coming from? Do you feel that you are talking about the same thing?
Well, you know, one thing that Joe Buttons just brought up was a very interesting point about seeking information. This word bitch, let's just say, start there. If you're not really seeking what the word means, meaning go to the dictionary. This word is an English word, bitch. It means female dog. It means a difficult situation. It means, and if you look at it from a hip hop point of view and you acronologize the word, meaning B-I-T-C-H, we would say it means because I take charge here, or because I totally challenge him. These are poetic words that we in hip hop.
Shaun.
Let's go to the dictionary then. Pull up the word actually nigger. Now, when we talk about this word nigger, we're mostly confusing N-I-G-G-E-R, which no hip-hopper uses, with N-I-G-G-A, which is first appearing on Niggas with Attitude's first album. Now, nigga, if you just go to the dictionary, not my opinion, you're not anybody's, the dictionary, the word nigga actually comes from the word negus, meaning king. So if we are using the
that
word...
Isn't how it's used. It isn't actually, you can't just change the context to suit. It isn't actually used. I'll tell you something now. The black people in the room, if a white person called you a nigger, how would you respond? Until you get to the point, and if a white person in the room said to you, you're a king, how would you respond? They have different meanings.
Oh, yes, it has a difference. Oh, it has a difference.
Yes, they have different meanings.
Oh, it has a difference.
Hold on. I just want to say one thing as well. I just want to say one thing. The other side of the debate, right, they've got things on the side. They've got star power. I love KRS-One, got all the tunes, love the man. And it's... But they're wrapping up what hip-hop does, what the bulk of hip-hop does in all of the tough journey that the black community has. Hip-hop hasn't been the only way we've expressed ourselves. It's in other forms of music as well. It's what hip-hop says today to you in your room. It's what it says about black children. It's what black boys and black girls believe about themselves.
That's your opinion. That's not the fact. That's not the fact. That's your opinion.
Itself with our tough gestation.
I'm going to bring in John Sutherland. He's an emeritus professor of English, and it'd be interesting. I know you're a fan. You're on this side, John. But how do you reconcile this question of language when you listen to the lyrics?
Well, now's the time to have a snooze. I'm the oldest person on this panel. I'm white. And I know less, I suspect, about this distinctively African-American music than 80% of people in the audience. I start with an apology. The point I would make, though, is you know, in science fiction, Theodore Sturgeon, who's a very distinguished practitioner, said, yeah, 90% of science fiction is crap, but then 90% of everything is crap. Yeah. Now, it would seem to me that that with rap, it could be 99.1%. But the thing that I would say about rap is that in jazz, you can have instrumentals. You can't have instrumentals in rap or hip hop because it is words. Alpha and omega, I'm sure that Professor Peterson will agree with me, the word is central. I've taught poetry for 50 years. I know it when I see it. My prediction is that in 20 years' time, there are people in the audience, I may not be one of them, who will see this. In 20 years' time, Tupac Shakur will be ranked with Walt Whitman as a great American poet. And that is
Thanks very much. John, thank you. Very briefly, and then we're going to go.
It would be tragic to reduce the hip-hop cultural discussion to 3 words. It's so much bigger than nigger, bitch, and whole words that black people did not invent in the first place. So whole culture is culture, it's art, it's politics, it's economics, it's rebellion. The whole body of thought should not get reduced to 3 words. That would be unfair.
Jesse Jackson, thanks. Wait a sec, I'm just going to go, I'll bring you in a second. I'm just going to go to get a little bit of sense on the web. Tricia, I'm aware of you. Jemima, do you want to bring in a few of the questions that people are talking to us about?
Thanks, Emily. Feelings running very high on the web. Many hip-hop defenders questioning why hip-hop in particular is being singled out for criticism. Yeah. So there's a question asked by Eto Elad on Google+. To those against hip-hop, what about movies? Why do we deride hip-hop but hail violence in movies such as The Godfather, etc., as classic cinema? Why glorify Scarface and demonize 50 Cent? Same again, we've got same vibe again from Jim Herbert on the Google+ page. To the panel, many kinds of music, like metal or pop, are misogynistic or promote stereotypical images of women. Why single out hip-hop?
Right. Okay. Jemima, thanks very much. I promise to bring Tricia in just one point.
You know, the problem with the framing of the conversation is that it doesn't allow for the capacity to love hip-hop and criticize it strongly at the same time. So we have, you know, many distinguished, extraordinary people here who are experts on hip-hop, but who seem to be unable to make a serious critique of what's going wrong in commercial hip-hop. And it seems to me that this is actually more dangerous than the content of the music itself. Because if we cannot talk seriously, you know, this is not 1989 anymore, okay? Commercial hip-hop is a global, multi-billion-dollar industry that, for the most part, you cannot reduce all of hip-hop to that, but it is burying the underground. It's called the underground for a reason. And what that means is that if we're not willing to say, look, there's sexism, it's been around for centuries and centuries, of course. But if you want to find the most blatant, celebrated brand of sexism against black women, let me go back to that, Mr. Slaughterhouse. Appreciate being called a young lady in some ways. But in other ways, I am a full professor, and I would appreciate that to be on the record as well. But finally, it seems to me that unless we can take very seriously the degree to which black women's bodies and black male bodies are celebrated only and primarily when they capitulate to these narrow images, we're doing hip-hop no favor by making room for that over and over again.
Okay, thank you very much. We're at the end of Act 1. It's now time to move on to Act 2. And the question that we're posing this time is, rap is just bad poetry. This time, Eamon, it's to you to start the questioning. Use the witnesses as you see fit to build your case.
Benjamin, I am sure you're going to speak the truth and tell us that rap is not even poetry.
I'm afraid rap is poetry. It is a form of street poetry. It comes out of the oral tradition. The oral tradition is much older by thousands of years than the written tradition. The oral tradition gives voice to people who don't have access to publishers and money. It gives voice to people who would otherwise be voiceless. And it gives them an ability to speak uncensored. And some of the words, I mean, I come from a roots reggae tradition. We fought for years alongside Bob Marley and Peter Tosh to get rid of the use of words like nigger and hoe and things like that. So for me, it breaks my heart to see those words come back into use. And I don't think people are creating much interesting poetry when they use those kind of words. But I wouldn't deny them the right to use those words. And I do think, as the sister said earlier, we lovers of hip-hop, 90% of the records that I've bought lately, the CDs that I've bought have been hip-hop. I bought one Marilyn Manson CD, but I got home and it was Elvis Presley. But we lovers of hip-hop should also appreciate that within it, there's going to be doggerel. Within it, there's going to be sexism and racism and homophobia. But I also see within it some beautiful poetry. It was a band called Estelle that introduced me to philosophers like Socrates and Egyptology. KRS-One helped me along the way. I mean,
I'm coming to him. Shaun.
These are great thinkers. I just want to say, can I say one more thing? Because I didn't have a chance to say something earlier, and I've got to say it now. When I look at society as a whole, not just for black people, this audience is not full of just black people, as a whole, and look at who's degrading it, it is the politicians that are sending our people to war. It is those that are closing down our services. Those are degrading, really degrading society.
Shaun.
What I would say about hip-hop,
We're talking about poetry.
Poetry, I come from poetry. Undeniably, the skill is high. The likes of Jay-Z, just unbelievable lyricists. That where the problem comes is what they say and what they do. If Jay-Z's in this room, I'd say to him, you are powerful. You mean a lot to black people and black boys in particular. Say something else. You have a great amount of skill. Use your poetry to do something else. Is it bad? Yes, but only because of the content.
But please, I mean, in this country, we have rappers like Logic and Low-Key, who were very educational rappers, very conscious, very political, but the media doesn't give them a voice.
You're right. You're right, but the thing is this. Hold on, one thing. Let me do one thing, because I know it. The thing is this, right? I said before, we've got lots of conscious rappers, but that's not what people are buying. That's not what we're into. We buy something else.
There's another thing which I beg to differ. I actually think that what's happened is that we've perhaps over the last years with our obsession with hip-hop probably lost a whole sense of musicality, the ability to play instruments, the whole idea of our tradition that was rooted in blues and jazz gone away because I think, as I said before, we've made this commercial pact. So I don't actually regard hip-hop as great poetry, no. Probably very poor poetry.
Can I disagree with that, Mr. Long? Can I disagree with that?
To respond to some of this bullshit.
Can I disagree with that?
KRS-One, the teacher.
Yes, one.
You are serious when you tell me, Kanye West, you know how many hot bitches I own. That he's talking about dogs? Mm-hmm. What? That's poetry?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Right. Wait. Well, let me make sure I understand your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the poetry in this, and that when I hear niggers, I'm hearing about kings.
Well, this is the point.
That's what you're telling us.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying seriously. First of all, like James was just getting ready to say, what he's talking about when he says bitches, he's talking about cars. Now, if you don't understand the language, like we speak a coded language.
Yes.
In the blues would say, my baby left me, my baby don't treat me right. Baby meant boss. That means they're sharecropping bosses, they couldn't say it openly for fear of reprisal. So why do we have to continue? Let me just make this point. Why do we have to continuously answer for our own self-expression?
No, because you're here to answer questions today.
But you're not coming with the facts. But you're not here with the facts.
The point I make to you is this, simply this. If you are telling me that Kanye West is talking about a car, then he's not communicating to me because we don't understand him.
Kanye West is not
if he is talking about kings, we don't understand him.
My point is that if we go to the dictionary, regardless
Give me a break.
No, wait,
Dream.
you can't cut me
No, Dream.
You can't cut me
Dream,
off.
you just got cut.
Let me say
Dream,
this.
the floor is yours.
If in fact you go out of emotion and deal with intelligence.
Yes, squared.
Squared, you will not, don't put your emotion for it. Try to understand what I'm saying.
Kanye
Calm
West
down.
is
Try to understand
Don't
what
be
I'm
emotional.
Yeah.
Dream.
Kanye West is absolutely talking about women when he says, do you know how many bitches I own? And that is a problem, and he is to be confronted for that. However, that's not even the only time Kanye West goes so far as to talk about white women in particular as some kind of treasure or trophy, like a Versace couch or something that he's like.
Means cocaine.
That is absolutely not
true. That's the truth.
That's not what Kanye is talking about. And we do ourselves a disservice to not, and I resent what Tricia was saying about, we're on the front lines. There are women, Joan Morgan, myself, Sheena Lester, Kierna Mayo, we have been confronting these MCs about their misogyny and not letting them sidestep and bullshit us when they want to divert and deflect it. And we've been doing that, not in the academy, Brown, I don't know if you can become a full professor if you talk about the history of slavery in Rhode Island and Brown University being built by slaves. But I know that in hip hop, I began my career by calling Dr. Dre a bitch for attacking D. Barnes. So yes, absolutely, Kanye is talking about that. Does Kanye talk about other things? Is he one of the more vulnerable MCs? Of course he is. And D.H. Lawrence kills his mother in Sons and Lovers. Right. I'm not going to Lady Chatterley's Lover is completely misogynistic. Am I supposed to dismiss his entire, The
funny thing is that when you look at the video of Kanye West, what you have are some women shaking their asses, not cars. You are about to say something, Tony. You're about to say something, Tony.
You're talking about our language. There's another issue that...
No, but let's focus on poetry, because Benjamin...
You're not focusing on poetry.
Benjamin,
you're not focusing on
you will have your turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an issue about language and poetry, and how, in fact, what worries me about the situation, particularly for African-American boys and for black boys in the UK, is, and girls as well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean just one gender, but the whole idea that if you speak in standard English, somehow you're not black. Somehow the whole way in which hip hop has become almost a dominant force. This idea that in fact it was. I mean, I've heard Reverend Jackson, which. I mean, Reverend, I'm sorry, but I think you're playing for an audience here, tonight, because this is not the Reverend I'm hearing. Because I think that what's happened is that we need to begin to tell our boys, and particularly we're going to succeed in mainstream America, succeed in mainstream UK, that you've got to speak standard English. You've got to learn that, and you've got to learn that poetry.
You'll have a chance to respond a bit later. This is.
But let's see. To my friend, Estelle, are you there?
Hi.
How are you? Estelle, I want to suggest to you seriously that I looked at your lyrics.
Right.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And I understood.
I was raised right.
And I understood what you were saying. Then I looked at other lyrics, 50 Cent, Jay-Z, and I want to suggest to you that it is two totally different things. One is lyrical and poetic, yours, and his, the bass, devoid of meaning and content to the masses.
Opinion, poetry, art, you're allowed. I'm so sick of everybody saying, well, this is what we're sitting here and we're saying exactly the same thing over and over again. Hip hop is this type of thing and hip hop is this moment. It's not. We're absolutely allowed to talk about me growing up in the 80s. We're absolutely allowed to talk about free, don't think about being less than yourself. We're absolutely allowed to talk about our experiences. This is, to me, as a teenager growing up, when I was young, all I wanted to talk about and what hip hop taught me to talk about were the things that I've been through. Now, if 50's experience is being shot 9 times, what is he gonna speak about? Strawberries and light? My experience, hang on. I understand what you're suggesting. My experience is growing up with 9 kids in a house, being broke and wanting to never ever be broke again. And with that experience, I managed to break through so many different barriers that UK artists and young UK kids are starting to relate to, and are now doing way better in the music industry.
You have been able to break out of that and become very successful because you're singing poetry that we can understand.
And that's your opinion, and that's great. And that's great. But sir, we weren't all brought up to think or believe or, you know, nobody came up the same way.
And yo, the other thing, though,
let
me say something, not to cut you off. No. But what you have to understand, sir, wait. Let me just say this, because I personally am not for the way that this thing is structured and is being skewed right now. Because everybody is attacking hip-hop for the usage of the word nigga and its misogyny, which is evident and clear. You saw one of the proponents of hip-hop, Dream Hampton, just speak to KRS-One and said that she definitely had to check people, and she's not making any excuses or pardons for anybody, but it's a deeper conversation. It's the conversation. We are still, as black people in this country, still licking our wounds from slavery. You know, we still are dealing with that, how we view ourselves and how we look at ourselves. 100%. And we do that through the music. You know what I'm saying? So for everybody to be in there, like on the opposite side, and to condemn the music and saying that it's the strong arm of as the sister says, you know, it's the marketing arm of misogyny and violence.
People have been
because that shit is embedded. That's embedded in the American ethos.
People have been getting locked up.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks, Estelle, as well. We're out of time for Eamon, but I have the loveliest job. I'm going to invite Michael now. You have 10 minutes to question your witnesses. Just to remind you of those on the Hangout now, you have Estelle, as you saw, you have Isiah Thomas, you have PJ O'Rourke, you have Q-Tip, you have Questlove. You may or may not have Slaughterhouse. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, ain't that a bitch. You know, I want to turn to Professor Sutherland. You made a comment. It's clear here that we got enough self-righteousness to fill a church or a temple or a synagogue or a mosque, whether you read the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita. I think that Professor Rose is absolutely right. Toni Morrison said, can I love what I criticize what I love? The problem, I think, is that when Eamon began, he said, now Dyson is, and my style I notice you're admiring, don't be mad, UPS is hiring. What's interesting is that because I have rhetorical flourish and oratorical ability means that it has to be separated from logical assertion. No, that's a white supremacist Eurocentric paradigm that you have to be deposed of. Just because I say it with style don't mean I ain't saying nothing, dude. So what's interesting, right, but that kind of condescension, and I would disagree with Professor Rose, not in the argument that we shouldn't be self-critical, but that to make a separation between commercial and non-commercial misses the point that some of the most ignorant, ill-informed people are underground, and they're underground because they're ignorant and ill-informed, and they can't get above ground because the shit they're saying is stupid and unworthy of celebration. So I would think I wouldn't make a distinction between merely commercial versus non-commercial, though her commercial argument is brilliant. It's about the ethic and the moral vision that's being put forth and perpetuated. Professor Sutherland, you said something remarkable, that Tupac would be granted a space with Walt Whitman. I sing The Body Electric. Just the other day, I got lynched by some crooked cops, and to this day, myself, of course. Right? Okay, tell us what you mean. Tell us why it's poetry.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you read, I'm not going to give a lecture on Whitman.
No.
But Whitman was absolutely immersed in the streets of New York, and his Brooklyn poems are, in fact, sort of, and at the same time, they're very uncomfortable because he was dealing with issues of sexuality, which then would have been criminal.
Right.
So it does seem to, the point I would make, and I don't want to talk too much because Professor Peterson can make these points better than I can, but we've seen an elegant demonstration of what rap is by my neighbor on my right, KRS-One. It is performance. When he was playing with the Advocate there, and of course, you know, behind stage, people don't use words like whore, bitch, fuck, cunt. They don't. They were exquisitely well-mannered. Why? Because that was the performance behind stage. And when rappers get on stage, they perform.
Right, okay. Professor Peterson, since Professor Sutherland has indicated your linguistic superiority here, sir, tell us Tell us why Brother Eamon, lovely man that he is, has missed the point about the complexity, the complication, the nuance, the signification. If we say we up in this bitch, not to disrespect what Professor Rose said about laughing and dismissing and marginalizing the humanity of women by that. I would stand with her firmly on that. But the rhetorical complexity saying we up in this bitch, which I've heard women say,
Right.
what is it about the manipulation of language that hip hop has done so brilliantly that has occasioned such outrage?
Well, I mean, there's been so much bullshit said so far, man. I mean, there's so many things I would like to address, but I'll try to address this in a way that tries to capture some of my frustration with the conversation so far.
Okay.
I think when we let's talk about the language piece, because people are so hung up on those three words, the N word, the B word, and the H word, whatever people keep saying. You know, poetry is made up of certain forms. It has aesthetics, there's metaphor, there's simile, there's also double entendre. So if you go back and listen to that Kanye line that we're talking about, it may have both meanings. It could have more than one meaning. I mean, that's what poetry is about. But to question whether or not rap music is poetry is parochial and idiotic. It is poetry. It's like questioning, is water water? The form of it is poetry. The form of it is poetry. So if you talk about meter, you want to talk about rhyme scheme, you want to talk about enjambment, you want to talk about metaphor, simile, any of those things exist in rap music.
Right.
But listen, to the point about the language, because everyone's so hung up on the language piece of it, it's idiotic. It really is. Because what happens is that, what are you saying? You want to censor artists? You want to censor artists? Would you tell Chaucer to not use the word wench? Right? No. What we want to do is we want to enlighten listeners so they can make those decisions on themselves. We want listeners of hip-hop music to be critical. For instance, it's still misogynistic for him to refer to cars as the B word. But let's talk to listeners and young people, educate them around that. Trying to censor artists or try to degrade the art form itself is just simply idiotic, and it does not happen throughout history, right? So it is important to talk about the fact that a form that comes from the oppression and the sort of transcendence of young black people is the form that has to be on trial here. Because we need to put video games on trial, put films on trial, put rock music on trial, put country music on trial, put classical music on trial, put opera on trial, right? Any of those forms subscribe to the same limitations that we find in society. The bottom line here is that there's good hip-hop and there's bad hip-hop, but the form itself is what it is. To question whether or not it's poetry is simply idiotic.
All right. Yeah, beautiful. Brother Jeff, yeah, very quickly.
And that is, if it were Bob Dylan, which is being discussed here, it is prejudice to take black music and treat it as if black people can't have poetry. Right. But Robert Zimmerman, Bob Dylan, that is poetry. Let's take him to the White House, let's give him a medal because he is a great American poet. It seems to me there's still that subterranean rift. Would you agree?
Right, subterranean rift. Nice spot. Jaron Lanier, tell us, weigh in, my friend. Weigh in. You've been waiting to talk.
No,
you're a computer scientist. You understand music. Weigh in, bro.
Hey. First of all, it's a total honor to be here. I'm an outsider in this world, but I'm deeply honored to be part of this. So thank you for having me. Look, I'll weigh in a couple of ways. First, I'm a technology guy, and the first time I met rap and the first time I met hip hop was on the streets of Oakland in the late 70s and in the Bronx, because I'm a musician, I have friends, and I went around. And the thing that got to me, I can't hear lyrics when I hear music. That part of my brain turns off. So to me, it's just vocal percussion, and I adore the vocal percussion. It's brilliant. But the other thing is it's technically brilliant. Before it went digital, what I saw in teenage kids building these studios with turntables and tape machines and all these cables, I'd go back and forth between the early virtual reality systems we're building at NASA, and I'd go to a hip hop studio and I'd say, man, the complexity is similar here. There was a brilliance to it, and that got lost when it got commoditized and digitized. And that's always the tragedy for me, is that there should have been this incredible wealth and this technical brilliance that should have risen as part of the culture, not just the dance and the videos and the lyrics and the beats and all that. There should have been this other part. We lost it. Okay. So that's the part I mourn. But I've got to tell you, this thing was an authentic blooming of real culture, real beauty. The flaws in it are the flaws in all of us. They're real, but we can't divorce ourselves and say, oh, it's those people over there with the bad thoughts. This is authentically part of America. It's real. It's part of me. The misogyny is within us. I embrace it as I embrace us, and we all need to improve. But anyway, so I just can't tell you how honored I am to be here with all of you.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
let me get in, and then I'll end with you. I'll end with you. So, KRS-One, you're one of the great poets that we've ever seen in American culture. Your body of work speaks for itself. Your breath control was flawless. Your articulation was immaculate. Tell us why hip-hop is poetry.
Poetry, you know, I agree here with James in terms of like the bullshit conversations we're having here. I mean, why can't we just say, like, wow, this is incredible. Let me say this, poetry itself is a social medium. The people who speak it have a code. We speak in our code. It wouldn't be poetry if we didn't have a code to it. We'd just be having conversation. If we didn't have metaphor, if we didn't have different definitions to what we're saying, you wouldn't even want to be interested. You want to probe and get deep into what our language is. So right from the point of view in a democratic society, and that's what I don't hear coming from this side over here, where all voices have to be heard in order for the society to exist, how can rap not be poetry?
All right, there it is from the poet, too. Reverend Jackson, we're in with you.
What strikes me is this assumption that somehow hip-hop has this power to lift us up or to degrade us, this power to declare war on wrong targets. That's not hip-hop. This power to foreclose people's homes and banksters stealing them blinds, not hip-hop. Killing innocent people, dropping drones on them. Student loan debt greater than credit card debt, that's not hip-hop. Too few people got too much, too many got nothing, that's not hip-hop. Somehow, what hip-hop says to us, in spite of all of this, if I'm Eazy-E in some garage in Compton, if I am Curtis Blow in some jail in New York, or if I am Tupac trying to make it against us, through all of this stuff, I am somebody. I matter. And nobody can break my spirit. It is that spirit-breaking dynamic that has captured the world. And so hip-hop is Arab Spring in motion, take you from sitting in to the presidency. Hip-hop is taking us from Selma, Alabama to the White House. Hip-hop is a spirit, it's an occupying spirit that cannot be stopped.
There it is. And you've heard from one of the greatest rhetorical geniuses of all time, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Much love and respect to you. Do we have another minute here for Deeb? Deeb wants to just jump in. One minute.
Deeb.
I want to say that I don't think rap is bad poetry. I think rap is genius poetry reflecting a bad reality, and this is a very important notion. The reality that we're living is, is not the ideal reality that we want to live. So what rap is, it just translates reality. And if reality is bad, then what you'll hear on the song is bad. We don't make things up. And it's very honoring for, as a hip-hop artist to see the youth, listening to a hip-hop song rather than watching the news. They trust the hip-hop artists in the Middle East so much that they support them and root for them rather than listen to the news and watch the news, which is, biased and politicized. Right. So rap is such a strong language that we are using to to free minds, and to just not occupy minds.
All right.
Yeah, we do occupy minds, by the way. We do occupy minds with knowledge, and that's what we're trying to do.
All right.
Yeah, basically.
Thank you. All right.
Michael and experts, thanks very much. A lot to approach then for our last round of questions. We've heard about other forms of music and indeed other forms of culture being put under the microscope in the same way. We've heard that poetry has to be uncomplicated, and we've heard that some people will trust hip-hop artists more than they'll trust the news. Plenty to go along with then, but before we start the last question and answer session, we're going to start the final vote here in the hall. So just tear your ticket in two, use the for or against half to put in the ballot box. I can see people at the front doing that. We're going to get the boxes coming round. If you still haven't made up your mind, put the whole ticket into the box. If you need a little bit longer, we'll try and get this session going so that you can think while you vote. And there's somebody waving very dramatically at me, so I guess the first question, a little bit of hush, guys. It's over to you, just to kick things off. Then, Jemima, I'll come to you if there's any questions online. You, sir.
I just want to say, Mr. Courtenay, I think that in general, the way that you're approaching the debate is way too simplistic. I know it's been said by a lot of people, but hip-hop is not homogenous. So for you to talk about hip-hop in such a homogenous sense is a ridiculous argument, in my opinion. Shaun, you made a point about hip-hop portraying black men as sexy and dangerous, but that's not hip-hop that portrays black men as sexy and dangerous. Have you seen the Old Spice advert when you've got a black man taking his shirt out, and if you see black men on TV, they always got their top off, acting a certain way? That's not hip-hop that creates that. That's society in general that sees black men behaving in this way.
I just don't want to be seen as dangerous. I'm happy for everyone to think I'm sexy. I just don't want them to think I'm dangerous.
I can't hear you, so I don't know what you just said.
Jules says, happy to be seen as sexy, not dangerous. Okay, thanks very much. So, yeah, I don't know if you've got mics. We'll get some very quickly.
Realistically, hip-hop is just speaking about reality. It does not create the social conditions. People didn't start talking. Hip-hop didn't start rapping, and then people started selling drugs. The drugs are already in the community, which is why people then started to use hip-hop as a means of expressing that. So why not attack the social conditions that exist rather than attacking the music form that expresses the reality?
Okay. I'll take one more question from here. Yep.
Hi there. I'd just like to make the point that it seems that the argument, or rather the consensus that I'm getting, is that there's not a clear distinction about how we're operationalizing the term hip-hop. Because the way that I see it is hip-hop it is transcendental, and it has made a number of really significant contributions to society, but equally so, there is a lot of damaging messages. But like I think many of the panelists have mentioned, it seems that it's reflective of a society which has actually, by and large, excluded certain members access into mainstream society, and those marginalized, those people who are on the periphery, have to use the means that they have available to them in order to be able to express something. Unfortunately, by and large, in the commercial sector, which I think Tricia really clearly said, there's not that many people, and I think people making very positive points, and unfortunately, that is damaging because largely people are not exposed to positive messages, and I think that's a lot to do with the commodification of the hip-hop industry.
Thanks very much. Thank you. I want to go to some of our speakers on the Hangout. Questlove, are you there?
Barely.
Let's see if yeah, brilliant. Questlove, could you sell the same number of albums if you were talking about positive things? I mean, that's the charge that's always put to you.
He does.
But this is the thing. Would you say the industry could? Yeah, can the industry be driven by people who are just selling? The industry as a whole, if people stopped negative lyrics, could they sell as much stuff?
Look, I'll say this much, and this is coming from an American standpoint. I personally believe, I guess the question sort of came up like, well, why do we take things like The Godfather not as seriously, but we can take whatever this ex-rapper says seriously. I mean, for the most part, most MCs in hip hop are seen as caricatures. They're seen as one-dimensional, so they're not even seen as human beings. So, I mean, I think that the real question should be, why are, American black men just seen as caricatures? Like, why aren't we taking efforts to somehow lift them up? I don't know. Like, Q-Tip is a great example of what I think a three-dimensional human being is, but yet he's not seen in the same light form as a Dylan, as a Springsteen, or as a non-hip-hop participant. As far as positive messages are concerned, I mean, the Roots have went platinum twice, and I think most people sort of consider us the
right.
People consider us the standard of whatever is supposed to be political or whatever colloquialism you want to use for what's correct about hip hop. But
yeah, thank you very much. Let me just bring in Jason on that point, because your side was accused of, if you like, a lack of democracy, that, not wanting people to be able to express themselves in the way that they saw fit and being lumped together.
Well, I want to make the point about pop culture or music culture versus movies, or music versus movies. Al Pacino played Scarface in a movie. Al Pacino does not purport to be Scarface. Scarface, the rapper, purports to be Scarface. His sales are predicated on being able to sell himself as actually who he is in his music. Music, or particularly rap, is different than acting, so it's different. And I may not get a chance to speak again. I just want to enter into the record. Most, I think, of what has been discussed has been bullshit. Most of the questions, not to be rude to our host, have been bullshit. I want to make one quick point. Michael Jackson, more powerful than any rapper that's ever existed, tried to use a Jewish slur in one song, and the Jewish people rightfully stopped him. Michael Jackson, one slur, and they stopped him. Think about that. The last thing I would say, the defense of hip-hop, which I love hip-hop, I defend a lot of it, but the defense of this commercialized gangster hip-hop, everything that I am hearing would be the equivalent if I went to a convention of the prison industrial complex, the people making money off prisons. They would be making many of the same arguments. We educate people in prison. We help civilize the society. This is good because there is an element of prisons that are good. We need prisons. But are prisons out of control? Is gangster rap, commercial hip hop completely out of control and a scourge and damaging black men and women? Absolutely. That's not even up for debate.
Let's go over to Jemima. Give us a sense, if you can, of the views that are coming in online. Jemima. Jemima's frozen.
Come on, Sam. She's frozen.
I can tell you.
Okay, we'll go back to Jemima if we can. Are there any, has anyone got a mic? If you've actually got a mic, yeah, just one over here, lovely. And you've got such a long arm, this guy here. Yep.
Just quickly.
If you want to direct it to one member of a panel, to be very specific, that'd be great.
Okay, to Mr. Fox, sports guy. Basically, I agree with you. I love hip hop, but I think there's bad elements. But with the bad elements in terms of gangster rap, who actually makes the money from that? Who gets paid? It's not the rappers. It's the big corporations. It's the, it's the, I don't know, Viacoms of this world and so forth. Why are we not criticizing them? Why are they not on this panel? Why are they not defending themselves? There are people that are making, millions from this.
Listen, I want to respond quickly to that because we have, a lot of the defense of it has been about who has created bigger sins or the original sin. Don't come down on hip hop because they bombed Iraq or they're not funding schools. We're having a discussion about hip hop, a culture that we created, African Americans, and that we should have some control over, or should be at least fighting for some control over, and making sure it is operating in our best interest. That is why, I'm going back to my point, Michael Jackson, Jewish people that control the record industry, looking out for their best interest, did the right thing.
You've got the mic. The guy who's just, you don't have to turn it on, it should be on.
There was
I'll bring you in one second.
the statement that KRS said that the word nigger couldn't ever be changed by context. You can't change the context, but that's the point of a lot of poetry. Even just when we talk to each other, like my mom, she calls me Stinky, like as a nickname, and that means something out of love. That means something completely different. Like, if any of you was to call me that, that means something still so different. So for you to say one thing can't be used like from black people to call each other and mean one thing, and it can't be the opposite for white people. That doesn't even make sense to me. And there was a statement as well about bitches being a negative term all the time, and you're never gonna. And there was also the point that you can't really see it being used as anything other than to address women. But there's a song by Jay-Z, and it's called 99 Problems. And the chorus is, like, 99, I feel bad for you, son. If you're having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. But if you got I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. But the whole point of that isn't that he's talking about a woman. If you listen to the actual lyrics of the song, when he says, he's talking about a bitch, the whole song is him talking about how at the end the police says, all right, we're gonna bring the canines for you. And he actually reports that as saying that the canines in this song is the reference to the bitch.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your point. Tricia. It's really hard to hear, guys. So just let Tricia respond.
I think there's a...
Let me say a couple of things about this and hopefully segue to a few of the other things. One is that there's no question that hip-hop is poetry, that the language and the use of camouflage speech and indirect speech and deliberately obfuscating speech has been a Black, African, and diasporic practice for centuries. There's no question that hip-hop is brilliant in its ability to do that. At the same time, so that is a fact, it should be celebrated. We need to have the aesthetics and the knowledge of what Black culture is. That illiteracy is often why the critics are often one-dimensional and simple-minded. At the same time, we have to ask a fundamental question about the N-word, which is different than your mom's very charming nickname for you. And that is that if you were to look at the number of times, I have 2 points, the number of times that we use this word proportionately and the elevation of the use of it, we have to ask a few questions. I mean, minimally, right? You have to ask yourself, of all the linguistic creativity of Black people in the modern world, we can't find something else to call each other more often? Now, I didn't say we should ban it. I didn't say we should challenge it. I didn't say there might not be multiple meanings. But I guarantee you that it is also a double entendre. That is to say that many times, maybe it also means a car, bitch, or maybe the N-word also means something else. But it's also a way to bring those words into common parlance. And 70% of rap is consumed by white males between 16 and 24. And they may not be nearly as aware of this double, triple entendre. And therefore, we should really ask ourselves, can we be more sophisticated in our critique of how the marketplace, to go back to Dyson's criticism of my point, how the marketplace panders to a narrow conception of Black people. You can be a genius and capitulate to that politics at the same time.
Tricia, thanks. I don't know if we can speak to Jemima on the Hangout. Have you got some sort of themes that are coming into us online?
I'm back. Thank you, Emily. Question on the question of censorship. I've got a question here from Telapperton on Twitter. Should sexualized, degrading content be stopped from reaching children? That's a general...
By their parents. Yes. Oh, my goodness.
There's an answer there from Estelle shouting, from their parents.
By their parents. Stop trying to use, and this is a consistent thing that we always say, everybody stop looking at hip hop to raise your kids. Again, I'm raised with 9 kids, and my mom definitely put the brakes on anything that was super negative that she didn't think was gonna ever, give me a chance to be give me a chance to be a productive member of society. That's what she would put the smack down on. No, you're not going to listen to NWA because you're too young. But when I got older and I was able to have a balanced viewpoint and a balanced opinion about it, free for all, go ahead and have it. I raised you, you're my kid. This is what I've given you. Everybody stop sitting there saying, well, hip hop's, I'm not out there shaking my ass. I'm not half naked, but I'm a hip hop artist. But that's the only way I could have written American Boy. That's the only way I know how to write songs is because I'm a rapper first. Do you understand? So you police this. I'm so sick of being blamed for this rubbish, for hip hop being blamed for this. You police it. It's boring. It's an irrelevant question. I don't.
Estelle, thanks very much. I'm going to bring in Dream Hampton. You've heard the way Estelle talked about using rap as a stepping stone, if you like, to the kind of stuff she's doing now. There are critics, vocal critics of hip hop, who will say, actually, rap retards Black success. It keeps people down instead of empowering them. What would be your response to that?
It doesn't. And let me also share this podium with Professor Peterson as well, because we share the same views on this. It doesn't. We're speaking as if, first of all, we're not part of the society we're talking about. It's like we're some other kind of something that didn't learn from this very society. Secondly, there's too much emotionalism and not enough facts. We're on Google. Look it up. Look up the word. Right now, whoever's listening to us, look up nigger, look up nigard, which is the French version of that word, and look up negus, which is the Ethiopian ancient version of that word. If we're going to constantly take the slave owner's definition of a word and apply it to those who are using it as their form of freedom, you're degrading us. We're not degrading you.
KRS, wouldn't it be easier when somebody uses the word bitches just to say, yeah, they use the word bitches, not always, they meant cars? Dream Hampton.
Yeah, since KRS took my question, let me take his.
Badus.
Forget the word bitch. Like, I don't want your patriarchal, like, framework to be, that's the problem, the narrative. Say you got rid of the word nigga, the word bitch. You'd still be talking about, in terms of the word nigga, you'd still be talking about a society, a global one, that looks at black men as less than human. If you take away the word bitch, you still have, and I don't have to even we just deal with hip hop, you still have black men who are looking at me, a black woman,
I'm not looking at you like that.
We're having less agency.
I'm here. Hi.
As having less agency. I don't want to be your queen. Right. Like, I don't want to be your wife. That doesn't make, like, us good women, bad women. And these are very Christian ideas. These are, I mean, I'm looking for the first rapper to use the female pronoun when talking about God. I'm looking for the first MC.
I did.
Okay. When?
I did on all my albums. Edutainment. Go look it up.
But KRS-One, respectively, Dream
is making a broader point.
Dream is making a broader
Last
point.
one.
You're an exception in that moment. We can still talk about the rule. Dream is making a critical point about the larger context. I mean, that doesn't deny you. Okay, well, why don't we both let her finish? I'll be quiet if you promise to be quiet.
You've got 30 seconds.
Yeah. So anyway,
Thank you.
I was tweeting or looking at Twitter.
Okay, I think we're gonna end it here if you can't turn it off.
That is the answer to a question.
All right, we've run out of time. We're going to let our two advocates summarize the arguments we've heard this evening on the motion. And this is the motion again for those of you who are still wondering about voting. If you're watching online, those in the hall have already done so. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades it. Michael, I'm going to invite you to have two minutes now to sum up.
2.5. Look, we're not having this debate about country music. We could. If I'd have killed you when I met you, I'd have been out of jail by now. One country lyric goes. The reason we're having this debate about hip-hop is because hip-hop is powerful. The question has already been answered. The debate has already been won. We're having this debate not about opera, which is about incest and murder. Snoop Dogg on steroids. It is about the ferocity of expression of a degraded people who seized the means of expression and authority. And let's be real, the wrong niggas got the microphone. That's why people resist hip-hop. Now, I understand, you know, when my good brother Jason says that Michael Jackson spoke, you're mixing apples and oranges, homie. Michael Jackson was not Jewish. You're missing the point. Black people are saying nigga, not white people. When white people do, we discipline and punish and circumscribe and put boundaries and limits. Now, I'm not going to infantilize white people. Let me give you a rule of thumb as to when you can say the word nigga. Never. Period. Jay-Z said Scarface the movie did more than Scarface the rapper to me. Still, that ain't the blame for all the shit that's happened to me. I'm not going to blame either one, but if you're going to talk about a hierarchy of privilege and assign a hierarchy of influence, let's talk about the global export of images that have been circulated within cinematic culture. And as Questlove said, you didn't hear it, the humanity of black people is at stake. Long before hip-hop, we were dehumanized and not thought as human beings who are worthy of being considered for art. And then, as I end, it was Mos Def who said, speech is my hammer, bang the world into shape, now let it fall. He said, hip-hop will simply amaze you, craze you, daze you, do what you say do, but black it can't save you. Hip-hop already knows as an art form trying to articulate the fundamental humanity of black people who have been vulnerable to the inimical and hostile treatment of a white supremacist culture. And at the end of the day, yes, some of the problematic terms, I stand with Professor Rose, one of the most brilliant intellectuals in the world, when she says that we must stand on the side of, and Dream Hampton, one of the great journalists of the world, we must stand on the side of degraded women. That's true, but that's not only true in hip-hop, it's true in the Quran, it's true in the Bhagavad Gita, it's true in the Bible, it's true in the church, and across the board. And in that sense, those of us who love and embrace hip-hop understand that we must be critical of it, because ultimately it is one of the most valuable vehicles to articulate the humanity of oppressed people that we've ever seen. Nigga, please.
Michael, thanks very much. Eamon, you're up, and your time's increased too. I think I'm going to give you 3 as well.
Your time, Courtenay.
Life is not as simple as some people want us to believe. KRS-One. You taught me a lot tonight. I don't believe you. You see, the point of it is this. KRS is representative of the good in hip-hop. He doesn't sing about bitches and hoes. He doesn't sing about niggers. Deeb represents the good in hip-hop. He was in Tahrir Square creating and participating in a revolution, using hip-hop in a positive way to bring down a tyrannical regime. And let me say something to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Hip-hop is powerful. Hip-hop is a force in this world. It must be a force for good. And that is the point that I have been making, and that is the point that we on this side have been making. And I will say this. If you wish to lull yourself and delude yourself into believing that a bitch is a car and so all is well, and if you want to believe that a nigger is a king, and therefore we are exalting each other when we call each other nigger, I say to you, you are in hip-hoposphere, which is a dark place. Let me end by saying this. I started by saying that I respect hip-hop. I would not discuss its beautiful and glorious history, because that we all, every single one of us here, accept. But I am not going to close my eyes to this. And I'm going to leave you with a quote. This is what I'm not going to close my eye to. Quote, "There are certain elements of hip-hop that glamorize violence, elevates misogyny and sexism. To that degree, it has negative consequences." End of quote. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, I agree with you. Thank you.
We're going to go just before we get the vote. They're just doing the last calculations. We're going to bring you the refreshed vote from the hall, and we hope online as soon as that's finished, and hopefully give you a sense of the direction of travel after the debate this evening as well. Just before we do, and while they're counting up all the last bits, Jemima, just give us a last couple of thoughts from what's coming into you there.
I'll give you a mixed bag of questions. First of all, though, I just want to say that the web love Stinky, so we should give Stinky a round of applause. So here's a question for Estelle, and it's asked by Sophia E3 on Twitter. "Believing I'm not a bitch, but some women are, is just divide and rule. Can't you see misogyny and sexism hurt all women?" Then a question here from Rokeya Surumi, Twitter. "To people defending hip-hop against charges of misogyny, then why are there so few people on the panel, so few women on the panel tonight?" And then another question here from Hannah on Twitter. Saying hip-hop is poetry doesn't get you off the hook. Poetry can be misogynistic too. Aren't artists still responsible for the beliefs that they promote? Can you still hear me, Emily?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm letting you give us one more and then I'm going to bring us the vote.
I've got Ashley Russell on YouTube. What about pop music? What about artists like Rihanna who exploit sex through her lyrics and image? The problem is the people who market and promote these images, the television and the music executives.
Okay. Jemima Khan there, thanks very much for an update on some of the points being raised. Stinky, it sounds like you have an alternative future and career ahead of you. Don't look at YouTube just yet. Let me bring you up to date then with where we were at the beginning of the night. I'm going to remind you of the vote. First of all, in the hall. So, the vote in favour of the motion, to remind you that hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades us, started at 11%. And then the one against was 67%. So 67% were in favour of hip-hop. Of the don't knows, there were 22%. Let's just see what happened to that now. After all the rhetorics and the argument, this is what we have. 24% agree with the motion now. Hip-hop doesn't enhance society, it degrades it. 24%, they've nearly doubled their share of the vote. But 70% disagree. They've also increased their share of the vote from 67 to 70% disagree, 6% don't know. So you've made up people's minds one way or another. That's where we are in the hall tonight. Online, this was the position at the beginning of the night. 30% were for the motion. 56% were against, and the don't knows were on 14. If you voted online, this is what you've said. In favour of the motion, hip-hop doesn't enhance society, there are now 17% in favour. Against the motion, a big rise, 72%, and the don't knows are now to 11%. So again, you've reduced the number of undecided. What we've seen then is online, that vote against the motion in favour of hip-hop has increased to 72%, a pretty big swing there. So on the anti-hip-hop side, a lot of people made us pause, and with the anti-side, they have captured a swing on the web of 13% who have agreed, and just waiting to get that swing through. If somebody can do the maths, you'll be quicker than me. 72% agree in the hall. Let's see what the swing is. 13% swing to those agree. 16%. Is that right?
16%, 13% and 16%.
Talk amongst yourselves while we get that right.
13% left us.
16%
went with them.
Right, I'm just going to leave you do the swing, basically. We'll get there. Maybe log on tomorrow morning. Basically, let me just give you the figures then. So for the motion, from 11 to 24 in favour. Against the motion, it went from 67 to 70 in the hall. And online, it went from 30 to 17%. But those in favour of hip-hop raised their share of the vote from 56% to 72%. Pretty dramatic changes there. I'll let you mull on those as you go out. I'd like to thank all our brilliant speakers, you, the audience, Intelligence Squared, and Google for making all this possible. Good night.